Word to your mother, my name's Steve, this channel is Frags Twitches. Thank you for tuning in. Now, today I'm talking about Parfums De Marly Sedley. I wanted to investigate this fragrance because it's one of the few fragrances from the house of Parfums De Marly that I haven't smelt, and it gets a lot of hype. Jeremy Fragrance recently declared it as the best fragrance from the house, which it's not. And Tony from the channel Fragdicted, he sampled all of the Parfums De Marly as a road to a purchase, and he chose Sedley as the one that he wanted to choose, and he loves it. He's really happy with it. So it's one that I've never smelt, so I've really wanted to try and get my nose on. Parfums De Marly as a house I find really interesting as well, because they have Leighton, which is my favourite fragrance of all time, and there's some other really interesting ones there like Carlisle, Pegasus, not really my bag, but I can see why it gets some love. I think it's a really interesting fragrance, and numerous others. Percival is a strong miss for me. It just seems so overpriced, and it's a clone of Mont Blanc Legend, which is about fucking a fifth of the price or something, if that. So it's a funny house for me. So I definitely wanted to tick this one off and smell Sedley and find out what all the hype was. So I reached out to some of the Facebook groups to see if anybody could hook me up with a sample, because I sure as hell weren't going to buy a bottle of it. And Paul at the Instagram page Average Fragrance Guy hooked me up with this sample of Sedley, along with a few others actually. So thanks to Paul, what a legend for sorting me out for that. So while I did that though, while I posted in that group and I said, can anybody sort me out? A few people, a couple of people commented to say, look, don't get Sedley, it's overpriced, it's not kind of worth it. If you want that fragrance, just get Boss Bottled Infinite. It smells the same. Shopped around, saw a good deal on it, so I bought it. So looking on Fragrantica, etc., these fragrances do sometimes get compared. And obviously there's a big price difference in between these two. Boss Bottled Infinite does still hold surprisingly good value for money, I guess, as it's a relatively new release. But I did manage to get this 50ml bottle for less than £30. Now, what I will say is I can see why these two get compared, because they're both sufficiently bland. So what I want to do in this video is answer the questions: is Sedley the best from the house of Parfums De Marly, and does it smell like Boss Bottled Infinite? Now, before I do that little slidey thing and cut to the next scene, for those of you that don't watch all of my videos, I'm going to tell you now, no, and yeah, a bit. So for those of you that do watch my whole videos, I'm going to try and elaborate on that now a little bit. So when I first sprayed Sedley, I was very underwhelmed. It just smelled like a very generic shower gel-esque fragrance that's kind of clean, kind of fresh. I was really underwhelmed, and I just thought, who on earth's going to pay like 170 quid for this? Is that what that goes for? Something like that. I was really shocked that people are paying that sort of money for this type of fragrance, if I'm honest. Now, that's not to say it's bad, because it's not. It's not a bad fragrance. I could wear it quite happily. It smells nice, but that's about it. It's nice. It's a very fucking expensive nice. So then when I sprayed Boss Bottled Infinite, again, similar sort of reaction from this. I was quite underwhelmed. I found it quite a sort of generic kind of shower gel with a bit more spice. So this one's kind of got a little bit more spice in the opening than this one, and it kind of reminded me of a video that I did recently on Jaguar Pace. I just kind of found that it's got this generic shower gel vibe with a little bit of spice, and that's kind of reminded me of that. Now, what I will say, when I actually wore these side by side, I actually think the opening of Boss Bottled Infinite is more interesting than Sedley. So they've both got this kind of generic, fresh thing, as I say, but Boss Bottled Infinite has also got cinnamon in the top, and it does kind of come across as this, I wouldn't say it's cinnamon heavy, but it's not got that almost gourmand sweet kind of cinnamon. It's kind of like a little bit of a spicy kind of thing going on there in the opening, but it just gives the opening, I've just sprayed these on just before the video, it just gives it a little bit more depth, or a little bit more oomph. It's just got a bit of something behind it in the opening compared to Sedley, which I found was a little bit, it's kind of, so yeah, neither of the openings blew me away, but I would say actually Boss Bottled Infinite is a little bit more interesting, but I can see why they get compared. They're both sort of fresh, a little bit kind of citrusy green kind of thing, but Boss Bottled is a little bit more spicy. Now, as it starts drying down, that's when Sedley improves for me. Boss Bottled kind of gets a little bit, as it goes into the mids, it kind of gets a little bit more, almost a little bit more spicy, and it kind of feels, I was gonna say less modern, but that's not true. It's kind of just feels a bit more like a generic cologne that a more mature gent might wear in the office. And when I say mature, I don't mean an old man, I just mean someone that's a bit more kind of got the stuff together, but just fairly unimaginative, not particularly exciting. So then as it kind of goes from the mid kind of into the sort of full dry down into the base, Sedley, the ambroxan and cashmere starts coming through, and it does kind of give it a little bit more. It kind of makes it smoother than Boss Bottled Infinite, and it just makes it a little bit more appealing, I would say. Where Boss Bottled Infinite doesn't kind of change too much. It keeps hold of that spice, and eventually after a couple of hours the spiciness kind of dies down a little bit, and they end up smelling very similar, to be honest. So in answer to the first question, like, yeah, I do think these smell similar. I would say they've both got that sort of clean, generic shower jelly kind of vibe. Sedley is a little bit kind of smoother and I was going to say creamier, but it's not really creamier. It's kind of just a little bit smoother and appealing from that ambroxan and the cashmerean, where Boss Bottled Infinite is got a little bit more spice going on, which kind of makes it a little bit more actually interesting, I would say, but probably a little bit more mature maybe, but there's not much in it. You could both easily wear this, but they definitely do smell similar. I got the wife to smell both after, I don't know, like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, something like that, and she was actually struggling to pick one. She said they both sort of smell the same to me. Eventually she picked Sedley. She said Sedley was kind of, she thought it was a bit stronger. I actually disagree with that. I don't think she was quite smelling at the sweet spot on my arm, but so yeah, she really struggled and said they pretty much smelt the same. So I mean, her nose is obviously not, she's not a frag head, but yeah, to the discerning punter, they basically smell the same, and the price difference is phenomenal. Performance wise, these two fragrances are pretty similar again, to be honest. I would say projection wise, Boss Bottled is a bit better, particularly in that first hour when that cinnamon in the opening gives it a little bit more depth and a little bit more kind of oomph. And the projection on Sedley is pretty soft throughout the whole life of the fragrance. But I'd say it does probably last a little bit longer than Boss Bottled, but neither were great. Both sort of 5 to 6 hours. But yeah, very soft projection on both, especially Sedley. So to answer the other question, is Sedley the best from the house of Parfums De Marly? In my humble opinion, the answer would have to be a fuck no. It's nice, it's all right, but it's just not worth the money in my opinion. And I emphasize in my opinion, it's all subjective. So if you love this fragrance, sorry Tony, I know you do, don't beast me, it's all subjective, you know the score. But for me, this is criminally overpriced. Criminally overpriced. I just don't get it why you would pay that sort of retail value for this when there is things like Boss Bottled and even Jaguar Pace, to be honest. I just don't get it at all. So there you go, that's the video. I hope you got something out of this. Sorry I didn't kind of go into deep detail breaking down the notes and etc and how they compare. If I'm honest, I find it really hard to get excited and enthused about these sort of fragrances. Like, it's all subjective and I'm a basic bitch, but for me, these are just so meh. I just really can't be arsed. Thank you for watching, like, comment, subscribe and all that shit, and I will see you for the next video. Take care, much love.